and which is very exciting because we've had some of our dames who have been here for a while. We also represent a number of other organizations, Mayflower, among others, Indiana Pioneers, obviously Indiana Dames, which are marvelous. Jamestown, sorry, I mustn't forget that. And DAR. Okay, so we have a group of ladies, all of whom have, in a way, some connection to slavery or enslaved persons, and may not have known that this was their case. And I've gone through mine, and I even got back to Connecticut. It is awful to say, hoping I could find some, but not necessarily. But there's some websites that are databases that are absolutely awesome that I would like you to consider. And I found a number of these. And of course, in one of the handouts that I have that you've got set to, I also included the historic study for historic nomination of the Pondweed House in Connecticut. So here we have tracking down someone in a very early period. And the PowerPoint, or the little, not the PowerPoint, but the slides that I put together as a PDF, I went slightly different route. I basically started looking at Nathaniel Pond. I found his probate record, which is in the handout. And his probate was in 1716. It should look hands-on task. You can share a copy with somebody. If you don't have one, please do so. His wife, Elizabeth Slauson Pond, died in 1711. So she's not going to be inheriting. So the estate did not pass to her, but his daughters and other family members. So my question, of course, was, did she leave a will? Well, probably not, because she predeceased Nathaniel. Nathaniel's property moved to his daughters, the eldest in this case being Naomi. There's the link on this PDF or handout to look at. Ellen's research led her to this info or information on Naomi Pond, daughter of Nathaniel Pond. And I put a screenshot into the document for you. Naomi Pond married Abraham Weed in Stamford, Connecticut on the 11th of January, 1727 to 1728, you know, those weird years. Could her baptized slave Phyllis be the same Negro servant from the earlier Nathaniel Pond probate document? Can you locate other records for Phyllis and possibly last name? I always want a last name. I keep wondering if Phyllis is our woman. I want to figure out which church she was baptized in. Would she be Phyllis Weed, since Naomi was a Weed? And the source of the screenshot, I give you that. So if we do some sleuthing today, maybe put your heads together, maybe we can find more information on her. Now, Ellen also shared a document, a wiki site, in which Naomi Pond married Abraham Weed. He died in 1757, and the probate records. But in the biography, it lists that Naomi Pond gives the date born, daughter of so-and-so, and again, the listing of her mother. It lists other siblings as well. Going to Abraham Weed, in which he leaves slave Phyllis to his wife, Naomi. And there it is in, no, it's not as clear to do a screenshot. Negro woman named Phyllis, and also our whatever part of my movable or whatever personal estate to be her own self, her person in my real estate, goes on. That was the early point. Okay, what happens to her? Where does she go? Does she get passed down to a daughter? So there's the link on Ancestry to go to. If you go to the next page, vital record for Elizabeth Pond in the Stamford records, it shows there's Elizabeth, wife of Nathaniel, died. There's the May 11, 1711. Well, that then took me to other resources. How about Northeast Slavery Records Index? This is awesome. I highly recommend that you try this out. It's Nesri Commons, and then it's through CUNY, New York. It's through a university site. It's known as the Northeast Slavery Records Index. It's an online, searchable compilation of records that identify individual enslaved persons and enslavers and lists all those states. Now, those are New England states, but we're dealing with New England here in this case. So then I put the links in so you can actually go directly to the records in those states. Obviously, any assistance on this project is most welcome, even if you go down numerous rabbit holes. I like rabbit holes, as long as you come back out again. There's a picture, early picture of the house under the hill. And obviously, Ellen, you have much better pictures because you've done a lot of work on restoration. It's one of the oldest homes. This is a 1970s photo that accompanied the National Register of Historic Places. So in the Museum of Darien Archives in Connecticut. Now I'm going to turn the page. Okay, in Stamford records, we have Naomi, there's the record, married Abraham Weed, 11 of January 1707-8 by the Reverend John Davenport. You can see there are quite a few ponds in there. Number of Elizabeth, very common names. So we have to be careful when you're looking at things that you're going after the right one. So, pond keeps turning up. Now the back side of that page has the source for you. Generation 1, Nathaniel Pond, father of Naomi Pond Weed. That's the next page, probate document. 1716. Inventory includes, it's midway down the list of names. There's initial cover page up on the website is, the document is page 876. We're going to be at 877, line number 22. A Negro woman, 15 pounds sterling. Or in the next line, an eighth part of a sawmill. So obviously you can see that property, even if it was a human property, is listed as a movable property. And so we have here, you see circled there in the red, a Negro woman. Now the 15, it finally dawned on me, as in that was the sterling, because, of course, we're still linked to Britain. We haven't had that war yet. And then you have, reading through the rest of the document, if you pull it up on your own screen, which we can do today, you can see a looking glass at 8 shillings, 4 bottles, and some other type of chest, 4 shillings. A little hole, something for 2 shillings. Further down, after you go past a Negro woman, we have a bed and 2 bolsters, 15 shillings. A feather bed. A feather bed. I've been in a feather bed. My great-grandparents had only had feather beds. A blanket, 5 shillings, and goes on when you think about an inventory. So everything had to be accounted for. So it mentions that this estate shall be divided between 1 son and 2 daughters. Here's Josiah, Naomi, and Thankful Pond. The son shall have a certain portion. The daughter shall have equal portion of the said estate, and the court offers and appoints Jonas Weed and John Slauson Law of Hanford to make distribution of the said estate. So obviously the men are in charge of who is getting this stuff. And there's a guardian of the above named daughters of the deceased, Nathaniel, and hath received the sum of 16 pounds. And I just went on down through more of the records, just making a few notes. I won't read through this because you can read. Generation 2, there's Naomi Pond, married to Abraham Weed. Does Naomi Pond Weed have a will or probate record? Who might have inherited her slave woman, Phyllis? That's assuming she had Phyllis. Go to the following will for her husband, Abraham Weed, will dated 7 December 1757. You get to turn the page. So, quote shown above, since I know we don't want to read all that fine print. I give and bequeath unto my loving and beloved wife Naomi, my Negro woman named Phyllis, and also 1/3 part of my movable or personal estate to be her own, and also her, Dolson, in my real estate according to law. Then I found they had the following children, so I put those in blue because they lived to a certain age who could inherit. I have not pursued them. Those are rabbit holes. There's Bartholomew, Nathaniel, there's Hannah, but you need to find out to whom she was married. And then there was Peter, all of whom could have inherited. Rachel was too young. She died at age 10. There were some others that died too young. So task is to locate probate records for the sons, starting with the eldest, who might have inherited Phyllis. Hope this is all making sense. It's on the back page of, it looks like that.
It's actually in that,
It's in their packet.
it's the last page. It's got, Stanford final records.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah. And then I just put in, some of this is just copies of the links. I put all the links together. And then I come to the section on the house, which is awesome. The Pondweed house with its large stone central chimney and sloping rear roof line, I won't read this whole thing, has the simplicity and sturdy vernacular veneer characteristic of early Connecticut architecture. After it was erected, very probably in the late 1690s, this frame structure received modifications circa 1716, which result in the existing two-story house with rear lean-to. Notable features include the massive stone chimney with a T-shaped plan, exterior wall of early shingles with semicircular butts, a first period exterior door, exposed framing, paneling, and much early hardware. The house was probably built by Nathaniel Pond. It was sold by him to Nathaniel Weed in 1716. It remained in the Weed family for 210 years. He served as a blacksmith at one point. It was a dwelling house and barn to somebody else, and other authorities have looked at it. Compiler of Old Houses, a survey sponsored by the Colonial Dames, no doubt of Connecticut, in 1942, believed the house was erected by Pond since its framing features are similar to the Swain Harrison house built in Brantford in 1687. He was the second owner, a member of a leading family which is still prominent in the area. He was a blacksmith and large landowner. After his death in 1751, the house was inherited by his son. It then passed in 1801 to his son, John II, referred locally as Gentleman John. At his death in 1852, he bequeathed the house to his daughters, and it goes on and on and on. That doesn't answer our question. What happened to Phyllis? The commercial use obviously is local significance. And we're so lucky to have Ellen, who is restoring. Ellen, do you want to put more than 2 words in here about your wonderful house?
Yeah, well, number one, I would welcome everybody to come visit at some point when it's finally habitable. We purchased it in 2020 and spent a lot of time just poring over all of the hardware extant in the house, all of the features, uncovered an earlier fireplace. And my son Chris Fagan is the architect, so he literally drew out every room, what was existing, the number of nail holes in flooring to determine how often those floors might have been moved or replaced. So we've done a real deep archaeological sort of forensic dive on the house. We had LiDAR scanning done initially. We've also had part of the property scanned to see earlier buildings. I'm looking for the blacksmith's forge, if I can find it. So we are armchair historians, armchair archaeologists, and we're both in the arts. And the Pondweed house is just, it's a dream come true for me and my son. It just shows us how building practices moved from medieval structures in England and made their way to Connecticut. We also sometimes wonder if the house has certain Dutch elements in its architectural manifestation, since there was we were right on the border with the Dutch in New York at that time, so there would have been some crossover. But for the most part, we've decided that the house is English. It's a center chimney colonial with a large cooking area in the lean-to, and a former larger cooking area in the fireplace that we uncovered. And we hope to be able to live there by the end of this year. It's been a long time coming, but contractors are swarming all over the property every day right now. And the roof is about to go on.
Wow, that's very exciting.
Is it a family home or just a historical home? Interest.
I can't hear you. You're far from a mic.
Yeah, Ginny is asking if this is going to be a family home, or is it just,
Is it part of her lineage?
is it part of your lineage?
It's not part of my lineage. We do have early ancestors that were in Windsor, Connecticut, that were English in the 1600s, but this was not a part of our family's lineage. It is going to be a family house. It's also going to be my gallery's offices, my son Chris's architecture offices. I will probably do projects with artists on a regular basis there, just like I do now. It'll just move and start to embrace the uniqueness of this building. And that's all I've got planned right now.
A lot planned right now. And I thought it was very interesting when you shared with me, Ellen, some of the pictures, which I think we should save for a bigger audience if we can get you here to speak. And that finding the corn cobs used as insulation tucked in between some of the beams, and that child's shoe. And you know, that you had real people living here in the 1600s. We just can't connect with them, except that you're connecting with them when you can see the markings on those beams that you're indicating with that had been there, that were rather mysterious. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, Deborah Weed, and this is kind of common practice. She graffitied her name inside some of the clapboards in the house, along with some other markings that I can't decipher. And so we've saved those pieces of clapboard, and those will go back into the house once it's restored. So there's been a lot of artifacts left behind, as you would find in your own homes. You know, if you've got a height measurement in the kitchen or pantry and those kinds of things. We've found a lot of material that former occupants cared deeply about and put into concealed spaces, and for various sort of invocations for their safety, things like that. Witchcraft, anti-witchcraft. There were witch trials in Connecticut before Salem. The witch trials in Connecticut started in the 1650s. And so people were very concerned about witches, which is something that follows humanity everywhere we go at any stage.
Hey, yes, we have a question.
When Phyllis died, did there be a record of her death?
Yes, there's a question. When Phyllis died, was there a record of her death?
Well, this is the issue. She is not Phyllis yet. I think that this is
we don't know her last name.
No, we don't know her first name. We're saying Phyllis,
assuming.
but I'd caution you from that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've found about history is that 99% of it is the narrator's voice. And therefore, if you want to go with the narrator's voice, then that can be your history that you accept. But I am not accepting of that. I really want to get down to written facts if possible. So this Negro servant that was passed in probate in 1716 is nameless. There is a servant that was under Naomi's care and ownership later, much later, that was named Phyllis after she was baptized. Those are the only two things I know.
So it's a big void. It's a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah. Even if it's the same person.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that's the same person. Yeah.
So also, what we say is that enslaved people typically do not have a lot of name until they became free.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have that. That's
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
problem. They are property of their white person. They do not have last names.
Yeah.
That's very rare to have that happen prior to the.
Being free. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they took their slaveholders' last name out of the war, sometimes they created their own name.
Created their own or took something
Sometimes
totally
they
different.
are ones that are in plus, or sometimes they're named one thing, and sometimes they're named something else, but they do not have a last name.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be a challenge, Ellen.
Well,
We'll try.
in a perfect world, you guys are so much better at this than me, so much more experienced in how to go down those rabbit holes that I really welcome your input. And I'm on the Stanford end of things, so there's still one library that I haven't gone to that may have some earlier records. The goal is to put this name and this deceased person together and have it be fact. And if I find out that she adopted the last name of Weed, and I get to start looking into potential descendants, I would love to invite them to the house,
Yes.
see where their ancestor lived. I think that that would be the culmination of this search, is to let all family members under the Weed family umbrella know where their ancestors were living way pre-revolutionary.
This makes it challenging, looking at the records, very different than later. So, and thanks you for the comments, Laura. That's very helpful. Other thoughts before we let Ellen go? Thank you so much. Yes, yes, Laura.
So in the last 2 weeks, the New England Historic Genealogy Society had a hour-long seminar called Finding Enslaved African American Ancestors pre-New England.
Uh-huh.
And it's on YouTube.
Yes. So go to the YouTube site. You might want to note it down. The new link, NEGS, put this up on searching for give this the title again.
Finding Enslaved African American Ancestors
in New England. Okay, Finding Enslaved African Ancestors in New England. I'm on NEGS. I got the link for that, but I missed watching it.
I didn't watch the video.
Okay. I feel better now. And I'm sure that NEGS probably put on the list that site that I have in Connecticut, which is the database that does all the New England states. I went down trying to find some for New York. And so that's a good thing to look at, which will have some hands-on time today. So I think it might be kind of fun to explore that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess the last thing I would say about the house is when Nathaniel Pond was there, it was part of the Stamford settlement. And even more specifically, geographically, the Norotan River settlement. Darien was not incorporated until long after this probate. So everything kind of is in Stamford records when it comes to that early first period in that part of Connecticut.
They don't want to go down the wrong track. New England and early New England is very different than looking up slave records from Alabama, etc., which I had the other handout. I left that. It's on my laptop, which I will
It's
Yeah.
also been very convenient to have
No.
citation.
No,
So if they had slaves in the family, it was usually a servant, a lover.
Yeah, yeah.
A slave. In staff, they had thousands.
right, right. You had whole groups. Okay. Thank you very much, Ellen. Anybody else have any other question before we let her go? And thank her for coming together with us and having a opportunity to do this via Zoom. Really appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch.
Thanks. I'm here. I'll turn off the Zoom when you're ready. And
Okay.
so if you need me again, I'm not far.
Okay, so I need to go do something. Stop video, I assume?
I think she.
You will do it. Yeah, she's the boss. She's in control here, so.
So if I stop the video sharing, then you're just going back to the meeting, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
You're not hosting right now.
No.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
No problem. Isn't technology amazing when it works?
Yes.
As you saw when I booted this thing up and the whole thing crashed. Yes. Yes, good. So we're working on this. Because I had stuff. I'm trying what else was in my packet because I had other things.
Ellen, maybe we ought to just kill the Zoom,
Yeah,
and then maybe we can have you Zoom back in with a different code or something like that. Should we try that? Okay.
she's